There's a moment in every interaction between a man and a woman that reveals the truth beneath everything: her interest, her emotional patterns, her insecurities, her expectations, and most importantly, her attraction. That moment is not when you text her. It's not when you compliment her. It's not when you show effort. The real truth is revealed when you do the one thing most men are terrified to do. You ignore her. Ignoring a woman, silence, distance, emotional withdrawal, activates something inside her that no compliment, no gesture, no romantic line could ever trigger. It flips a switch. It awakens a different side of her psychology. It forces her to confront emotions she doesn't fully understand. And here's the shocking part. She will react in ways she didn't expect either. Because when a man who once gave her attention suddenly becomes quiet, something powerful happens inside her mind. At first, she'll pretend it doesn't matter. She'll act unfazed. She'll scroll through her phone with confidence. She'll convince herself she doesn't care. But beneath that act, something deeper begins to shift. Curiosity, confusion, doubt. She starts asking herself questions she never considered before. Why isn't he chasing? Did I misread him? Is he really done with me? These questions grow in her mind like pressure building under the surface. What most men don't know is that a woman's emotional system is built around feedback. When you give her attention, she feels control. When you take it away, she feels uncertainty. And uncertainty is the most powerful catalyst of attraction. Not because she likes games, but because your silence forces her to confront her own feelings, something she often avoids. Ignoring her does not create desire by manipulation. It creates desire by contrast. It removes the comfort she took for granted. It removes the validation she silently expected. It removes the emotional advantage she was using without noticing. Suddenly, she is forced to feel everything she tried to suppress: fear of losing you, curiosity about your silence, frustration that she cannot predict you, and a surge of attraction toward the man who isn't acting like all the others. Stoic men understand this. They know that silence is not punishment, it's clarity. It reveals who she really is when your attention is gone. Does she fight for you? Does she chase? Does she panic? Does she step up? Or does she crumble because she was never truly invested? The shocking part isn't that she reacts, it's how she reacts. Because when you ignore her from a place of discipline and self-respect, not ego or anger, she will do things that reveal everything you need to know about her interest. She will test you, chase you, question you, tempt you, or even break down emotionally. Her behavior will expose her level of attachment, her fear of loss, and her respect, or lack of respect, for you. Ignoring her doesn't change her. It exposes her. It reveals the truth she hides under confidence and calmness. And once you see how she reacts to your silence, you'll never doubt your position again. Before we start, a quick reminder. The real transformation doesn't happen on YouTube. It happens inside the community. If these videos have opened your eyes, what's inside will rebuild your mindset completely. It's not just a course, it's a brotherhood. A private space where men master attraction, emotional control, and the psychology of power. You don't join for a month, you join for life. Every future course, book, and lesson is yours forever. No subscriptions, no limits. Just one decision that changes your direction. If you're serious about growth, discipline, and purpose, click the link below. Join the community. Enroll once, grow forever. Let's dive in. Section number 1. She pretends not to care. But internally, everything shifts. The first thing a woman typically does when you ignore her is deceptively simple. She pretends not to care. She acts unaffected, calm, indifferent, even slightly amused by your silence. She goes about her day as if your absence has no emotional weight. She might even appear more confident, more lively, more engaged with everything around her. But this external performance is never the full truth. It is a protective layer, a psychological reflex, a mask she wears to preserve her pride and maintain her sense of control. Inside, everything feels different. Your silence disrupts the emotional rhythm she was unconsciously relying on. Even if she took your attention for granted, it was a source of stability. Even if she didn't always show interest, your presence had an emotional echo. And when that echo suddenly disappears, her mind enters a state of confusion. She may not admit it, not to you, not to herself, not even to her closest friends, but she begins questioning her assumptions. She starts thinking about you more than she expected. This internal shift is subtle, but it is powerful. The reason her exterior doesn't match her interior is rooted in psychology. Women are conditioned socially and biologically to hold emotional advantage. They are used to men chasing them, reassuring them, showing effort, and seeking validation. When you ignore her, you interrupt that familiar pattern. You take away her emotional leverage. You challenge her self-image. And suddenly, she is confronted with uncertainty, an unfamiliar and uncomfortable state for someone who believed she held the upper hand. At first, she tells herself stories to maintain emotional stability. He's probably busy. I don't even like him that much. It's whatever. These internal scripts are part of her defense mechanism. They temporarily soothe her ego, allowing her to pretend that nothing is wrong. But with every hour of silence, doubt begins to creep in. She replays past moments in her mind. She wonders if she misjudged your interest. She becomes curious about what you're doing, who you're with, and why you haven't reached out. The calm exterior slowly becomes an internal storm. Your silence forces self-reflection. It makes her confront questions she avoided when you were giving effort. She begins to evaluate her own behavior, whether she was too cold, too distant, too dismissive. She wonders if she pushed too hard, or if she underestimated your value. A woman begins to see a man differently the moment she realizes he does not depend on her for emotional validation. That realization triggers attraction, respect, and curiosity all at once. Stoic men understand that a woman's first reaction to being ignored is almost always a performance designed to protect her pride. But beneath the surface, your silence is already working. It is disrupting her comfort. It is destabilizing her assumptions. It is pulling her into emotional awareness. You do not need to send messages or force a response. Simply by not reacting, you create a psychological tension that exposes her true level of attachment. Her outward confidence might look strong, but what she feels internally, doubt, curiosity, and a growing sense of urgency, is the beginning of her emotional investment returning. Ignoring her doesn't push her away. It pulls her deeper into her own feelings, feelings she cannot mute forever. Section number 2. She begins watching you closely, even if you think she isn't. After the initial phase of pretending not to care, something powerful shifts inside her. She becomes hyper-aware of your presence, even in your silence. She may not message you, she may not like your posts, and she may not initiate anything publicly, but psychologically, she is now watching you far more closely than before. This is the moment your silence begins to challenge her sense of emotional control. Women are naturally observant. Even when they seem detached, they track patterns, behaviors, and energy shifts with remarkable precision. When you were engaging, she felt secure in her position. She knew where she stood. Your presence was predictable. But when you ignore her, truly ignore her from a place of composure, not manipulation, you introduce uncertainty into her emotional landscape. Uncertainty pushes her curiosity into overdrive. Now she begins looking for signs, answers, clues to understand what changed. She might check your social media multiple times a day. She might watch your stories in seconds, but pretend to forget to reply to your messages. She might ask mutual friends about you without making it obvious. She might scroll through your old conversations to decode the shift. This phase is not conscious strategy. It is instinct. When a woman loses clarity, she seeks information. When she loses control, she observes instead of acts. She wants to know whether your silence is intentional, whether you've lost interest, or whether you're simply focused on something bigger than her. This is where masculine silence becomes magnetic. If your energy remains consistent, unbothered, disciplined, active, and rooted in your mission, she cannot ignore the change. She sees that you didn't collapse, you didn't chase, you didn't question her behavior, you didn't emotionally unravel. Instead, you became unpredictable. You became harder to read. And unpredictability is one of the strongest emotional triggers for attraction. Women don't chase men who beg for attention. Women chase men who create emotional contrast. Your silence forces her to view you differently. She starts asking herself questions she never considered. Why isn't he trying anymore? Did he lose feelings? Is he moving on? Is there someone else? These questions ignite emotional tension, the same tension that rebuilds desire. The key here is that stoic silence is not passive. It is intentional. It is grounded in self-respect. It is the absence of reaction, not the absence of interest. When you ignore her from a place of emotional strength, your energy speaks louder than any message could. She sees your confidence in the way you carry yourself. She sees your independence in how your life continues. She sees your value in how little the situation affects your stability. Eventually, her curiosity turns into subtle pursuit. She may watch your stories more consistently. She may linger in your social media interactions. She may send a small breadcrumb message, something indirect, casual, or meaningless on the surface, just to gauge your reaction. But even before she reaches out, she is already invested again. Your silence has already done the work. A woman watching you quietly is one of the strongest signs that your distance is shifting the dynamic. She won't say it. She won't show it. But psychologically, she's already re-engaging. She is now more connected to you in your silence than she ever was when you were trying. Section number 3. She starts testing you to see if your silence is real or just a game. Once your silence unsettles her comfort and sparks her curiosity, the next phase begins. A phase many men misunderstand and often fail. She will start testing you. These tests are not malicious. They are not calculated punishments. They are emotional checkpoints designed to answer one question. Is he truly this disciplined? Or is he just trying to get a reaction out of me? A woman testing you during your silence is not a sign of disinterest. It's a sign that she is becoming emotionally invested again. But before she fully re-engages, she must feel secure in one thing, that your silence reflects emotional strength, not immature games. Her tests can appear in many subtle forms, and most men fall into the trap of reacting too quickly. She may send a small message, something vague, emotionless, or insignificant, just to see how fast you respond. It could be a simple, "Hey," an emoji, a random comment, or something that barely acknowledges any emotional connection. To you, it may seem meaningless, but to her, it is a thermometer checking the temperature of your self-control. She might also mention another man, indirectly or casually. Women do this not to push you away, but to measure your reaction. She wants to see whether your silence is rooted in confidence or insecurity. If you break your composure, she instantly knows your silence was a front. She may post something intentionally provocative or attention-grabbing on social media. It might be a picture, a quote, or a story that she knows will catch your eye. She watches to see if you react, whether through a message, a like, or even a sudden shift in your behavior. Your response, or lack of response, tells her everything she needs to know about your emotional stability. She might even try to trigger jealousy, irritation, or confusion, not to hurt you, but to measure your strength. Women test the men they respect or consider. They do not test men they've already dismissed. If she tests you, it means your silence is affecting her. She feels your absence. She is trying to understand your intentions. The worst mistake a man can make during this phase is losing his emotional footing, reacting too quickly, confronting her, trying to decode her behavior, or slipping back into needy communication reveals exactly what she feared. That your silence was not discipline, but insecurity wearing a mask. Stoic men understand that these tests are simply emotional feedback loops. They are not attacks. They are invitations. Invitations to prove that you are not powered by her validation, but by your own grounded identity. When you remain composed, unbothered, and intentional, she sees your authenticity. She sees a man who isn't easily swayed by her behavior. She sees someone she can trust emotionally. Your lack of reaction is not indifference. It is evidence of self-respect. When she tests you, and you respond with calmness rather than eagerness, something powerful happens inside her. Her feminine instinct awakens. She begins to feel drawn to your strength. She becomes curious again. She starts thinking about what she must do, not what you must do. A woman tests a man when she senses power. She commits to a man when she sees he doesn't lose it. Section number 4. She tries to trigger an emotional reaction to regain control. At this stage, your silence has already disrupted her emotional equilibrium. She pretended not to care, yet she did. She observed you quietly, yet said nothing. She tested you subtly, yet you stayed calm. And now she reaches a point where her curiosity becomes pressure. Her desire becomes discomfort. Her uncertainty becomes emotional tension. That's when she instinctively tries to trigger an emotional reaction from you. This is where things get truly shocking for most men, because her behavior may suddenly shift in unexpected ways. She may become slightly colder, more distant, or strangely sarcastic. She might ignore you even harder, hoping you will break first. She may post something intentionally designed to get under your skin. Something bold, something provocative, something that challenges your sense of confidence. All of these actions have one purpose: to see whether your emotional center remains unshaken. Women do not trigger reactions because they want chaos. They do it because your silence has created a psychological imbalance she does not know how to decode. She needs clarity about your true intentions, and since you are not offering emotional transparency, she tries to pull it out of you indirectly. If you break, if you react emotionally, confront her, get jealous, or show signs of insecurity, she instantly regains control. She thinks, "Now I understand him again." But if you do not break, if your silence remains grounded and authentic, she begins to experience something far more powerful: respect. You must understand this. Women are deeply emotional beings, but they do not respect men who are emotionally reactive. They respect men who are emotionally consistent. Your ability to stay calm under emotional pressure is the foundation of masculine influence. And nothing tests that foundation more than her attempts to trigger you. Sometimes she won't even be negative. She might suddenly act extremely friendly, overly warm, or oddly cheerful as if nothing happened. This too is a test. She wants to see whether your energy shifts the moment she changes hers. If you immediately soften, chase, or fall back into predictable behavior, she learns that your silence came from strategy, not strength. But if you remain composed, balanced, warm, but not overeager, present but not submissive, she becomes even more intrigued. Social media becomes one of her favorite tools during this phase. She might post pictures meant to provoke jealousy. She may share quotes about independence or self-love. She may post a story that subtly hints at interest from someone else. She may appear to be living her best life. But behind every post is the same psychological question: does this affect him? And here is the core truth. If it does affect you, you lose the frame. If it doesn't affect you, she feels the shift. Stoicism teaches that no one should have the power to knock you off your emotional axis. When you stay centered, you demonstrate true control, not controlling her, but controlling yourself. And this is the trait men underestimate the most. Women don't desire men who react easily. They desire men who remain stable no matter what is thrown at them. When she tries to trigger you and fails, something deep inside her shifts. She stops playing. She stops pretending. She stops performing. Because she realizes something she didn't see clearly before. You are not a man she can emotionally sway. You are a man whose presence she must rise to meet. Section number 5. She eventually breaks the silence, and how she does it reveals everything. After pretending not to care, observing quietly, testing your discipline, and trying to trigger an emotional reaction, something inevitable begins to happen inside her. Your silence becomes louder than your presence ever did. She can no longer ignore the emotional tension it creates. She can no longer hide behind confidence or pride. She can no longer pretend that your absence doesn't matter. And eventually, in one way or another, she breaks the silence. This moment is one of the clearest windows into her psychology, because how she reaches out tells you everything you need to know about her true feelings. Some women return subtly. They send a short, casual message. Hey, what's up? Long time, or even something completely random like a meme or an emoji. It seems small, but psychologically, it's a peace offering. It's her way of knocking on the door without fully admitting she missed you. Other women return with indirect questions, asking about something you once talked about, referencing an inside joke, or randomly checking how you are. These messages are not about the topic. They're about the emotional doorway behind it. They open it slowly, hoping you'll meet them halfway without making them confront vulnerability too directly. And then there are women who return with fire. They come back with an emotional message, something defensive, sarcastic, or confrontational. So you're ignoring me now? Wow, you disappeared fast. Guess you're too busy. These messages are not anger, they're exposure. They reveal that your silence affected her deeply enough to break her emotional armor. A woman only gets defensive when she feels something she cannot control. The most powerful version of her return, however, is when she comes back with softness, when the pride drops, when the defensive tone fades, when she openly expresses curiosity, confusion, or even a hint of vulnerability. Everything okay? I thought maybe you were upset. Haven't heard from you in a while. That tone shift is the ultimate sign that your silence didn't just reach her, it reshaped the dynamic entirely. But here is the deeper truth. She doesn't break the silence because you ignored her. She breaks the silence because you didn't break yourself. Most men crumble. Most men chase. Most men fold under pressure. But when you remain composed, calm, self-focused, emotionally grounded, you communicate something she rarely sees, a man who is not controlled by female attention. And that is exactly what makes her come back. Stoic men do not use silence as a weapon. They use silence as clarity. They give space for truth to reveal itself. And when she returns, she is not returning to the man she ignored. She is returning to the man who stayed powerful in her absence. Your reaction in this moment determines everything. If you panic and flood her with attention, the power shifts back instantly. If you become cold or arrogant, you break the polarity. But if you remain balanced, warm, confident, but not dependent, she feels something she cannot resist, safety in your strength. A woman's return after being ignored is not the victory. Your stability during her silence is. How she comes back shows her emotional state. How you respond shows your masculine mastery. And together, those two truths determine everything that comes next. In short, when you ignore a woman, the world does not shift because she suddenly becomes obsessed with you. The shift happens because you stop abandoning yourself for her reactions. Everything that unfolds, her pretending not to care, her quiet watching, her subtle tests, her attempts to trigger emotion, and ultimately, her breaking the silence. These are not the results of manipulation. They are the results of masculine composure. They are the natural consequences of a man who remains centered when she becomes uncertain. Most men crumble the moment a woman pulls away. They chase, they panic, they overthink, they try to fix what isn't broken. They treat silence like an emergency instead of a mirror. And because of that, they lose the very energy that made her attracted in the first place. But when you hold your ground, when you remain calm, disciplined, and emotionally self-sufficient, you activate something deeper in her psychology, a recognition of your value. Ignoring her is not about punishing her. It's about refusing to participate in dynamics that drain you. It's about giving her space to reveal her truth. It's about showing her, without a single word, that your world does not collapse when someone steps back. That you are not a man who begs for attention. That you are not controlled by emotional unpredictability. That you are not built on need, but on principle. This is why her reactions are so shocking. Your silence forces her to confront her own feelings, her own mistakes, her own assumptions. It reveals her investment. It exposes her fears. It awakens her desire. Because deep down, women are drawn to men who do not chase validation, men who generate their own. When you ignore her from strength, not from ego, something timeless happens. She begins to feel the loss of your presence, not just the silence of your messages. And here is the truth most men never learn. Your attention is not the prize, your stability is. Your availability is not the gift, your discipline is. Your words are not the attraction, your self-control is. A woman cannot ignore a man whose energy remains unshaken. She cannot dismiss a man who stays grounded in his mission. She cannot dominate a man who responds with silence instead of insecurity. And she cannot forget a man who proves, through his behavior, that he chooses peace over panic, purpose over pursuit, and identity over attachment. Stoicism teaches that mastery begins within. It is not about controlling others. It is about controlling the reactions they provoke. It is not about forcing outcomes. It is about shaping your internal world so strong that external storms cannot break it. And when a woman sees that strength, real, quiet, unwavering strength, she does not run from it. She gravitates toward it. So understand this. The power is not in ignoring her. The power is in who you become while you do. Your silence is not empty. It is filled with discipline. Your absence is not punishment. It is invitation. Your composure is not weakness. It is magnetic. And when she returns, and she will, it won't be because she needed attention. It will be because she realized the truth. She cannot replace a man who does not lose himself in the presence or the absence of a woman. Remember, knowledge means nothing without action. If you're ready to rise above emotion and lead with purpose, join the community today at the link below. Enroll once, grow forever.